Good evening, everyone. Welcome back.
Good evening.
Welcome back to Wat Chetawan for the series of the talks on the Noble Eightfold Path, otherwise also known as the way to end suffering. Tonight is on Samma Samadhi, or right stillness.
Very good.
And tonight is also the last night for the meditation retreat here. So you have a few of us here will be all the way until tomorrow. Strive on. So, yeah, we will try to complete the talk in about 45 minutes plus. And another 30 minutes or so, plus, to take your questions. The questions box is at the door. Is it there? It's not there. Okay, maybe it's all filled up. Oh, it is. Okay. So if you have any questions, just write them on a piece of paper, pop it in the box, and we'll bring it to the front after the talk tonight. Without further ado, let's put our palms together. Welcome Ajahn Brahm for right stillness.
Very good. Tonight's talk is on the final factor of the Eightfold Path, right stillness. And they always say that actions are much more powerful than words. So now, no, I can't be still for 45 minutes. But this is the last factor of the Eightfold Path. This is a culmination, the end point of that Eightfold Path. And as you see in that sort of description behind me, that's not all that accurate. I always like to see things in a slightly different way, but this way is the most accurate way. Meditation doesn't mean concentration. Please don't try and concentrate, otherwise you'll get headache and you'll have no peace, and no one likes to meditate ever again. Which is why that when you come to meditation retreats, if you think it's concentration, what does this become? Concentration camp. Which is not a very nice thing to come to. No, this is stillness camp. And when you understand the word in Pali, Samadhi, it means stillness, not concentration. But this beautiful possibility for the human mind to be perfectly still. Now, anybody can concentrate. Anybody can put their effort into one point and keep on there. You know, people who go to work, they can concentrate. People who do athletics, they can work. People, even soccer players, they're fully concentrated on the game. But are they enlightened? It's not about concentration. That's an easy thing to do. But stillness is a hard thing to do. And the meditation was always the heart of the Buddha's training and practice. The Buddha became enlightened by sitting under a tree, being perfectly still. And even that idea of stillness instead of concentration, just imagine stillness and how wonderful it would be. Many people in the world, many people, they aim for peace of mind. Sometimes that's all they ever want, peace of mind. They want to work so they can get enough funds in the bank so they have no more financial problems. They can have peace of mind. They want to settle all the problems in their family so they can have peace of mind. They want to get all their health issues settled so they can have peace of mind. And do they ever get peace of mind? No. In Kuala Lumpur and the rest of the world, the only place you ever find people resting in peace. You know where it is. It's in the cemetery, and it's a bit late then. You can't enjoy it. So this is all about real peace. And how can you have peace without stillness? Whenever this thing's moving, there is always noise. So there's many evocative stories about stillness and peace, which I will share with you. And I'm sure you have your own stories about times your life had these wonderful moments of peace and stillness. and you realize there was something important and very sacred and beautiful there in stillness. I remember once when I was visiting one of our monasteries in England, and I said I was a stupid monk because I'd always go in the worst time of the year, which is about now. If you ever want to go and visit Europe, never go in December, January and February. It's freezing. If you really want to know what it feels like and you don't have the money to get the airfare, just open the fridge and get inside and you know what it's like. It's freezing. But it also has some magic days. I remember one morning I was staying in this monastery, and that night someone showed me on the newspaper the following day it was minus 26 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really cold. I remember one of the monks said he made himself a cup of tea and then just went quickly to the bathroom to urinate. And when he came back, he had iced tea. It was solid ice. Now that was really cold, but you can always wrap up. You know, I've said to people, my method of climate control. We have too many air cons when it gets warm. We have too many heaters when it gets cold, and that's destroying our planet. So instead we have Buddhist climate control, which is environmentally excellent. Buddhist climate control is this, that when it's hot, you keep a cool head. And when it's cold, you keep a warm heart. That is called Buddhist climate control. When it's cold, keep a warm heart. When it's cold, keep a warm heart. When it's hot, keep a cool head. Very good. So she understands climate control and is saying, sadhu, sadhu, what a good idea, in baby talk. Exactly. I've heard you. You can be quiet now. I'm giving the talk. That's okay. Babies being babies. Now, it was so cold, but nevertheless, I rugged up and I went outside in the morning for a walk. And this was in the south of England. I walked in a forest, and in that forest, the snow had fallen. All the animals were hibernating. All the babies were inside. No one was around outside except me. I was the only sort of person crazy enough to go out in the morning in minus 26 degrees. But it was so wonderful. When I stopped walking, there was no sound at all. Nothing moved. There was no wind. There was no birds. They too were hibernating. There was no sign of any traffic, because no one had got up yet. And no aircraft, because all the runways were closed because of the snow. Nothing moved. And it was so silent. I always remember that to this day, of being beautiful, so restful, and so profound. In that silence, in that stillness, there was a great sense of inner peace, nothing lacking, almost like Nibbana, because that is what it is like. Stillness is so wonderful, therapeutic, good for your health, and wonderful for your heart. If we can touch stillness like that, we realize how foolishly we scurry about in life. That's a line from one of the poems in the front of my book, Who Ordered the Truckload of Dung. When we realize what stillness is, we realize, yes, that is where we belong. And I also remember as a young man going through London, and you'd be busy working or shopping or doing something. And in those days, I would always try and find, when I got a bit stressed out, try and find church, or even best, one of those great cathedrals, just to go and sit down. I wasn't a Christian, but I really appreciated the silence in those great monuments. And the last time I entered a cathedral was in Westminster Abbey in the centre of London. I've been there many times before. Outside you could hear the traffic, but when you go inside those thick stone walls and go deep inside the heart of that cathedral, it was a huge space and very peaceful. And that's why I loved going in those cathedrals, just to rest. Just being still took away all of the stress of a busy day. And the reason it was the last time I ever went there was because they had just installed a PA system. Oh my goodness. They were having sermons and announcements and other pieces of information. They had destroyed the stillness. And I thought that was sacrilege. Because for me, those great, big, huge cathedrals, to me what they represented was the stillness within. And the huge space, the great emptiness they were encapsulating. To me, that was its meaning. If you wanted to learn anything, you could go to the bookshops. If you wanted to hear a sermon, you can go when there was a sermon being delivered. But why did they have that on a PA system? Of all the places in the world, in London, couldn't one place be silent? A place where you could just sit and rest? And if any of you want to find a really peaceful place, you come to the monastery in which I live in Australia. And that is so quiet. One of the reasons is Australia is such a huge country. We don't have so many people, therefore not so much traffic. But even the animals are quiet in Australia. We don't have these cicadas always making noises. And all these birds always making noises. Even monks who've been in the forest in Thailand for years and years, they come to a place like Serpentine, where my monastery is in Australia, and they can't believe how silent it is. At night time, everything stops. And I remember one of the people who worked in our local government. He was the officer who would say whether you could build this or build that. And he was working there for many years, and he came to see me one day. And he said that, I just come to thank you. I'm retiring tomorrow. Before I retire, I just want to thank you. I said, what have I done? He said, for your car park. Because he said every time he got stressed out at work, every time he felt so tense, he would just get in his car, come to the car park of our monastery, and just sit. And in that stillness, all his stress would vanish. He would regenerate and go back to work, a rejuvenated worker, simply because he could eat of the stillness. How many people need that stillness in life? Places of quiet where you can just be. And all problems disappear there. Even some of the places in Serpentine where I live, some of the places incredibly still. Our meditation hall is one such place. Even when people go on retreat, we have a retreat centre on the other side of the road. They still prefer walking about half a kilometre to go in the hall where the monks meditate, because it's got atmosphere of stillness. So much meditation has gone on in that room. So still, it's as if the stillness echoes. It remains after the monks leave. And I never forget when I was organising a concrete worker to build our water tanks. Now, workers in Australia are really rough and coarse. They swear, they use the F word and everything else, even though they're really good people. That's just their character, that's their nature. That's how they've been brought up. And I had one of these really tough guys, really coarse, and at the end of the project he said, Brahm, they always call me Brahm. This is Australia, don't say His Emptiness or Venerable or whatever. It's always Brahm. I get into trouble by that sometimes, when I say my name is Brahm, because I went to give a talk at a Catholic school for girls once. Yeah, you know this story, it's a good story. I went to give a talk at a a school for girls about 13 or 14 years of age. Girls of that age start to get a bit cheeky. So that's their nature, especially over in Australia. And I gave a talk about Buddhism, and the next day I was walking in Perth, and a few of those girls were walking the opposite direction. They came up to me and say, "Hi, you came and gave a talk at our school yesterday." And I said, "Well, I'm so happy you remember me." And they said, "We will never forget you." Isn't that nice? I said, "We'll never forget anyone whose name is Bra." There's an M on the end. So please don't call me Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm. It is unforgettable, isn't it? A name like that in Australia. But of course, when anybody cracks a joke like that at your expense, what should you do? You enjoy the joke. It's a funny joke. I laughed as well. Because then the world never laughs at you. It only laughs with you. Remember that. If you do anything stupid, you say something stupid, you come to the meditation in the morning bit and you forgot to put your trousers on. Whatever it is, it's amazing the sort of peace you get in meditation. Whatever it is you've done, which is stupid, if people start laughing because something you've done, please you laugh as well. Then you never get embarrassed. In fact, what you do, you add to the happiness of the world. And what a wonderful thing it is. When an act of stupidity, you never get embarrassed about it. It's never personal fault. It's just your bodhisattva actions to create better happiness in this world. So if anyone's really miserable, please, let's have a sort of a volunteer to come tomorrow morning without any trousers on to make people happy. That's a real bodhisattva. No, but please don't do that. There's cameras and all sorts of other stuff, and we get a bad reputation. But you can see that but going back to, it's amazing how a story goes from one thing to another thing. I've got to go back to the concrete worker now who called me Brahm. And he said, "Brahm, would you mind if I have a look in your church?" He called our meditation home the church. I don't care what you call it. He realized he was religious. He was really rough, never been in a church in his life probably, just an ordinary Australian who used to do his worship in the pub. That was his religion. So he went into the church and he was talking all the way in. And he had big boots on, and you're not supposed to go in a temple with boots. So he said, "Just put your head round the corner. Keep your boots on." And he put his head round the corner, and as soon as his head entered that hall, he stopped speaking. He went totally silent. I knew what was going on, so I just let him be silent for about 3 minutes, really long. And then he pulled his head out and said, "Gee, this is good, Brahm, isn't it?" And it was wonderful. There was a really busy person, always talking. You could never teach him religion, but when he put his head in a silent place, he understood religion. He touched it. The peace which goes beyond understanding. That is the stillness. And that is something which as Buddhists we really get into. Because that stillness solves so many problems, so many health issues, and so many difficulties in one's life. It gives you meaning to find stillness in your life. And it's not concentration. You'll never find stillness with concentrating. You find stillness through letting go. I said this the first night with Datuk Victor. Was that actually in the talk for the yogis or the public talk when I talked about letting go? The public talk, yeah. It's how to keep the cup still. You can't keep a cup still by holding it. The water will always be moving. But if you put the cup down, the water becomes still all by itself. To be still, you have to get out of the way. When you get out of the way, stillness happens. So one of the great things in Buddhist meditation, it's not something you do. Every time you do something, you mess it up. In Buddhism, stillness is what happens when you stop doing things, when you just look without getting your hands agitating the water. Very often in many cultures throughout the world, they always have a simile for the mind. It's one of those archetypes for the human mind or heart, and it's called the lake, a body of water. Imagine that your mind is a body of water. Often there's a storm, there's a typhoon on that lake, there's huge waves crashing all over the place. That's when you're angry, depressed, when you've really got lots of problems inside of you. It's like a storm at sea. Most of the time you have waves on the surface of that lake. Those waves are your thoughts and emotions going over the lake, never allowing you any stillness. But every so often the wind stops and the day is perfectly calm and the waves get less and less and less until all there is are ripples on the surface. Until even those ripples, they lose their energy just through friction, and the lake becomes perfectly still. People love experiencing those lakes on a calm day. You even take photos of them, because a lake without any ripples on the surface perfectly reflects the hills and the forest and the sky around it. It is like a mirror. Not only does stillness create this enormous sense of peace, which is so refreshing, it also perfectly reflects everything around it. You get insight. You see things as they truly are, as a result of a mind that is still. That's where Buddhist wisdom comes from. Buddhist wisdom doesn't come from going to university, doesn't come from reading the books, doesn't come from listening to the talks of Ajahn Brahm. All you get from listening to the talks of Ajahn Brahm is a new joke to tell at work the next day. That's all that happens. But where you really get wisdom from is being still and seeing things clearly. Even the problems which you have at work. Sometimes those life problems, people line up and ask me the questions afterwards. Problems about the family, problems about marriage, problems about work, problems about their health. Why on earth do you ask me? I have never been married. I don't have children. I certainly don't have a wife, and I don't go to the office to go to work. Why are you asking me to solve those problems? I don't know what I'm talking about. But nevertheless, you come and ask me, and you do get good answers. Why is that? Why can a monk who knows nothing about marriage understand it so well? It is because you make your mind perfectly still, and everything around you can understand. One of my friends, she's passed away now, many years ago, she was had one of these really difficult jobs, high-stress job as a senior social worker in Perth. She was a person who had to deal with families whose maybe children were going to prison because of drugs, or because the husband was abusing the kids, with paedophilia, or there was some tragedy there, and these social workers had to pick up the pieces. And it was really, really a difficult job. Sometimes you had to go right into some of the most painful parts of family life and try and help. And that was her job. So when we had a retreat where people were developing stillness, she wanted to come, she booked to come, but in the evening she hadn't turned up. She turned up about 11 p.m. or midnight. And the reason was she had so much work to do, tying up as many loose ends as she could. And then in the end she said, right, that's it, I'm just leaving. And she came on the retreat with so much unfinished business. But she was wise. She didn't think about all those problems for the first few days. She just wanted to get her mind to be still. And what happened was about 3 or 4 or 5 days into meditating, her mind became really, really still, very calm. And then all these answers, they just popped up into her brain. She said, I don't know where they came from, they just came up. Answers to all these problems which she had to deal with, but which she hadn't thought about at all for days. And she wrote those answers down. And she realized these were very innovative answers which you can't really think through. They just have to appear. Sometimes, as they say, it's thinking outside of the box, not what other people would do, but the way that it came up. She realized these were going to work. And she told me afterwards, when the retreat ended, she went back to work. She put those ideas into work, into practice, and they were highly effective. And she would never be able to think to those ideas. She had to stop the thinking and let the ideas come. So much insight and innovation comes when the mind is still. All of you who have MP3 players, you know where that technology came from? There's one of these guys, he was a mathematician. He had the idea of how to condense information. And he had some sort of idea, but he couldn't figure it out. And it was only when he was so still, I think he was actually in a dream, that he imagined all these wires in a telephone exchange. I think that was a simile he had. And all being tangled, he untangled them until they were all in the correct place. And when he came out of that, he wrote down the equation, which is what is behind the MP3 players, to actually condense information into stuff which you can keep on iPods, iPlayers, and all this other stuff, which allows us to send information on the internet without overloading things. Simply came out of stillness. I know another man, because he was at Cambridge just bit later than me, a guy called Josephson, who through meditation, through stillness, had the idea of the Josephson junction, which is behind supercomputers, a way of mimicking the superconductor, which is not superconductors, semiconductors, which are the heart of computers, but at 0 degrees Kelvin, and almost absolute zero, figured out how they work. And that gave the engine behind supercomputers. He got that when he was meditating. He got the idea from stillness. If you want to be innovative, either in your career, in your life, or just in your family, to try and find solutions to these problems, you have to think outside of the box, as they say. And this is the way to do it, to have a bit of confidence that stillness will make the mind so peaceful that ideas will come up which you never ever expected or anticipated. This is how you develop a creative mind, not by thinking. That just creates headaches and just more of the old stuff. Silence sees things in a different way. So the Buddha was always asking the monks to live quiet lives, to have silence. So much so that in this retreat we always say we should keep Nobel silence. But what is noble silence. You will know, those of you who've been on a retreat run by Ajahn Brahm, the schedule is very lax. You don't have to get up at any time in the morning. Some of you haven't got up for morning chanting yet. And I haven't scolded you. Sometimes people, it's amazing though, here in Malaysia, people aren't always on time for chanting, they aren't always on time for the talks, but they are always on time for breakfast and lunch. They never miss those. But we don't have any bells on this retreat, because bells are used to control you. Just like at school, the bell would go for this, the bell would go for the next lesson, the bell would go for playtime, the bell would go for lunch. And on some monasteries, there's always a bell for something, even a bell to go to the toilet. They always have bells, but not on this retreat. Because this retreat, we have no bell silence. That's a terrible joke. No bell silence. Because we don't control the mind. And those of you who practice no bell silence, some of you may even get so still in meditation, you may win the No Bell Peace Prize. You actually do get peaceful when you don't have any bells and control. That is the way to get still. And when people achieve stillness, this samadhi, they also get huge bursts of happiness and energy. I've been telling the yogis here for the last week, your mind has two parts to it. The doing mind, the active mind, and the passive mind, the knowing mind. For those of you who say, does this come from the Buddha or from Ajahn Brahm? It comes from the Buddha, the Sankhara and the Vijnana. The doing mind and the Vijnana, the knowing mind, the consciousness. And most people just put so much energy into doing things. You are so active. You're always running around. You're always thinking. You're always planning. You do so much. No wonder you get tired. Imagine if you stopped doing things. If you stopped running around. If you could sit still. If you could stop thinking about the past and the future. If you could stop worrying about things and just be still. Then all that energy which is wasted running around, like all the money spent on useless things, will be freed. And that energy which doesn't go into doing things will all go in to the knower. You literally become awake. You see more. You're more energized. And therefore, your mind becomes really powerful and happy. Have you ever noticed, if you have a strong cup of coffee in the morning, you are happier? When your husband gets out of the bed in the morning, it's a waste of time talking to him. He'll be grumpy until he's had his first cup of coffee. And after the cup of coffee, he's a human being again instead of a monster. He's actually happy. This is quite common, that if you have some caffeine boost, you actually get happier and jollier. Simply because that's what energy does. And the opposite, if you run out of energy, you know what that's called? Depression. One of the great reasons why we have so many people suffering depression these days is a direct result of how busy they are. Or rather, how busy they were. They work and struggle so hard, they get to a point of running out of energy. And there, Noah has got no energy left at all. So much so that everything they look at, they taste, has got no flavor, look at has got no color, because their mind has got no energy. How do we get that energy back? This is one of the great treatments of depression. Just be still. Don't fight it. Just, as I mentioned to people, enjoy your depression. There's lots of benefits of depression. You can sit there and don't have to go to work in the morning. I'm depressed. People are kind to you because I'm depressed. You don't have to work and wash the dishes because I'm depressed. You can sleep in all day. Oh, what joy. I'm depressed. Sometimes I think I should fake depression because there's so many benefits. Now, this is not a joke, because when you enjoy, or rather make peace with depression, you'll find the energy starts to come back. The food starts to taste a little bit more delicious. The sounds are more interesting. Life is more engaging. And you let that energy come back, and the depression, just like this blanket of low energy, just fades. You're back again with energy of a normal human being. But don't go striving so hard next time. Relax more, because when you can be still more, you'll find the depression doesn't come back. You know how to conserve energy. Which is why I said, I think this morning or yesterday or sometime, that meditation, especially stillness, is one of the preferred therapies for depression in our modern world. People who develop this samadhi, this stillness, they don't get depressed. They get happy, just like Ajahn Brahm. You get energy. That's where it comes from, the stillness. So this is a great way of not just innovating, but also just getting energy back into the mind so you can enjoy life more. It's really strange. People think that religion is not about enjoying life. It's all about, enduring a talk, giving donations into the box. It's like going to the dentist for most people, religion. This is not about going to the dentist. This is about having a happy time. I love going to listen to talks because they make me happy. If it was a good talk, I go out with a big smile on my face afterwards. That is what made the happy talk. So sometimes we need to understand that the stillness creates the happiness. And that's why when people should never be afraid of doing samadhi, doing meditation. It's one of the fun things you can do in life. Have fun. Meditate is my motto. Have a good time. Be still. And for those of you who are interested in interfaith, even in the Christian Bible, there is a saying which could have been written by the Buddha. Be still. This is in Psalms. Be still and know that thou art God. That's a powerful thing. Know that you are God. Be still. And I don't know where that got in there from, but that, I say, is Buddhism. That's meditation. Be still, because what happens when you really get into what we call Samma Samadhi, the deep meditation? My goodness, your stillness is so profound. It's much more still than that forest I talked about. When nothing moves, everything is incredibly still. And the energy just builds and builds and builds. You've got heaps of energy, but it's not going anywhere. It's there, focused on one thing, just energy building up. And what does that come out as? There's incredible bliss. And I've told a few people, this is what I've been developing over the last year, because I'm always interested in the connection between bliss, real ecstasy, real powerful happiness, stillness, and ultimate love. The reason I got interested in this is because many people have had what we've called near-death experiences. When they die on an operating table floating out of their body, they go to a light which we recognize in meditation is the same light as a nimitta. And they go into that light, and they come back again afterwards saying it was perfect love, the most brilliant and beautiful experience they've ever had. It was just no problems at all, no separations between them and all other beings, just perfectly at peace, in harmony, and they describe that as pure love. Some of you experience some very high aspects of love. Sometimes it doesn't last that long. You fall in love with a person when you're young, but really what you're doing is you're falling in love with the way they make you feel. A beautiful girl, that hunky boy, in their presence, actually there's a chemical reaction from their hormones to your hormones, and sort of great loads of endomorphins are secreted into your bloodstream. You feel high when they're around, and when they're gone, you come down again. It's actually chemical. So sometimes, actually, if you get the right chemicals, you can actually get that high without really having to bother with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Actually, they never actually said that. It'd be an interesting thing to try. But anyway, that's actually that love of the first attractions. But later on, you come into the deeper aspects of love. It's not sort of so physical. It's more like emotional. You have a person there who you can really trust and you feel safe with. A person, who you can share anything with, and they know they understand you and they've always got goodwill towards you. The person who really does open the door of their heart to you, no matter who you are, no matter what you do. I know that's such a beautiful love to experience. Someone who will never ever criticize you. You know how scary it is in life? That we try and do the very best, we always get put down, we get kicked, we get scolded. And we do that when we're very young. What did we do wrong? That's one of the biggest things which is so difficult for a human being, finding out what we did wrong. And to this day, that many of the times I was scolded or punished at school, I didn't know what I did wrong. So all I ever learned when I was punished at school, what I learned, I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I made sure I never got caught next time. It just made me more sneaky. And I was very good at being sneaky, so I didn't get caught that much. But what are you doing wrong? You always get scolded. You have a partner in life, someone you commit to, your partner, your husband, your wife. Why can't they understand you? You're trying your very best. You're not perfect. Why do they always scold you and criticize you and put you down? What did I do wrong? And that's one of the difficulties. It's very rarely we feel that really full love of another person, where a person says, look, darling, I really do open the door of my heart to you. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, you're my soulmate, you're my friend. I love you for who you are. Not what I want you to be, but for who you are. If ever you come across that love, it's holy, it's spiritual. That's one of the reasons people ask me, you're a Buddhist monk. Buddhist monks, we don't have sex, we don't have wives. But why do you, Ajahn Brahm, go and bless marriages? It's not the place for a monk. And anyway, what advice can you give the happy couple? It's the same in the Catholic Church. People get married by celibate priests. What do they know about marriage? So the reason is because if you've ever got married, it's a highly spiritual event. You are opening your life to another person, making yourself very vulnerable. You can really easily be hurt. But you're trusting that partner of yours will understand and not hurt you. It's really opening up to another person, physically, emotionally, throughout your whole life. That letting go of all these defenses which you put around yourself in life, that letting go is very, very spiritual, which is why people, even if they're atheists, I have a lot of people who don't believe in any religion, but they ask me to bless their marriage. And why is that? Because, look, it's spiritual. We want something which is deep added to our ceremony. And it is spiritual because it is an opening up, a letting go, asking the other person, please open the door of your heart to me. I am imperfect. I want someone who can understand me and accept me for who I am and care for me instead of always criticizing me and putting me down. Unfortunately, in our life, sometimes those marriages are imperfect. We don't really understand what that relationship truly is. And we love each other for the first couple of years, and then we start criticizing each other. Well, that really is such a wasted opportunity. But not always. Sometimes you do get those people who are really developed and who can love you for who you are. If you've got a partner like that, you are very lucky. Keep them. Because you go out into the world, you get criticized at work, put down by your bosses, criticized when you're riding your car because you cut into someone else. Stupid girl, stupid guy. You know, we had a couple of road rage incidents in Perth recently, and one guy got killed. You know, this was in Perth. And I was telling people another story of road rage which happened in New York. This is what happens when you get angry in the traffic. I don't know who started it, but one car was chasing another car through the streets of New York. The driver of the pursuing car was really mad and angry about something the other driver had done. And the other driver was trying to escape this guy because people in New York, they have guns and they're really dangerous people. Unfortunately, the car in front got stopped by a red traffic light at a major intersection. He couldn't get across. And so the other car pulled up right beside him. And the driver of the car, who was really angry, got out of his car and tried to break the window of this other man's vehicle, smashing it with his hands or with something else. And of course you can understand what the driver in that vehicle felt like. If this guy had broke through the window, you don't know what he might do. The window was protecting him for the time being. Banging it against the window, trying to break it. The guy inside the car was very lucky. The lights changed to green, and he sped off. He escaped. The guy who was angry was trying to break through the window. What did he do? He turned around to get in his car and chase. But his car had gone. He'd left the door open with the keys in the ignition and the engine running. You don't do that in New York. A street kid or some thief had seen this stupid guy paying no attention to his own car and had just got in the car, closed the door and driven it off. He lost his car. And this guy, who was enraged, was standing in the intersection with no car, wondering what the heck he should be doing. That's karma. Served him right. But this is what sometimes happens when we get angry. But it's because, we can't accept, sometimes people make mistakes. And at least, if you've got a husband, a wife, a partner, please tell your partner, darling, in this relationship, you are allowed to make mistakes. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I say that to the monks in the monastery where I live. This is our community, this is our family. I tell every monk in the monastery where I live, you are allowed to make mistakes. It's such a wonderful thing. I can make mistakes. I'm not going to get punished. I'm not going to get shouted at. And the result is they hardly ever make a mistake. If you're afraid of making mistakes, you make more. If you're allowed to make mistakes, you hardly ever make any because you are relaxed. So this is actually what happens when we have this beautiful love and acceptance between two people. It means that they can find one person who can give them some peace in life. They go out into the world, and when they come home, it really is a true home. A place they can relax, a place they can be accepted, a place they feel they're cared for and understood, so that when they go back out into the world the next morning, they feel refreshed. I don't know what that's got to do with stillness, but nevertheless it's a it's a very important thing to talk about. But when people ask me these questions about marriage, I understand them because you get so still you can actually see very clearly what's going on. Stillness is a cause of insight, which is why through that deep stillness of the mind which the Buddha got into, which was high energy, blissed out, That is where he saw this Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. And that's why, even though it was teachings, it's teachings which have truly kept their relevance over 26 centuries, from culture to culture to culture. Some religions, they're very good with one culture, but the other cultures, they just can't really accept them. But it's really fascinating and impressive that these Buddhist teachings, they do go across all cultures of our world so powerfully that in a country like Australia, it is the fastest growing religion, more than Islam. And we've had no migrants coming in from Buddhist country for many decades. And still it's growing incredibly fast. Over 2.5% of the population there are Buddhists. And that's starting from a base of nothing about 20, 30 years ago. Amazing just how it's grown. Mostly amongst people who aren't born Buddhist. Why is that? Because it's a truth which is not pushed down people's throats. You're not told what to believe. You're asked to be still and see it for yourself. It gives you the means to be wise. Gives you the practice to see these solutions to the problems of life through stillness. And don't ever think that you have to sit down on the floor cross-legged on broken glass to get into stillness. I've been trying to get this message across in Kuala Lumpur for years now, and I've been highly unsuccessful. If you want to meditate, sit on a chair, for goodness sake. It is far more comfortable. In the old days, you used to sit on the floor. Maybe your mothers and fathers would sit on the floor, but some time ago, your house got chairs. And you sit on a chair to have dinner, you sit on your chair to go on your computer, you sit on your chair when you go to work. You're always sitting on chairs. You're not used to sitting on the floor anymore. So please, when you meditate, please sit on a chair. There's one wise woman over there, the only wise person in the front of the hall, sitting on a chair. Well done, madam. And everyone else is, oh, I'm in pain, Because we think, oh, we're in pain. It hurts, but it must be good for us. Oh, come on. It hurts. So if you're comfortable, you can be still. So please sit on chairs when you meditate. It's a wonderful thing to do. Old, young, ill, whatever, everybody can do this. And wouldn't you like to find some stillness, some peace in your life? You don't have to get everything out of the way to become still. You don't have to get all your business finished. Stillness you can get anywhere. There's one of the great teachings, and I'm going to finish with this teaching, that this was one of the great monks in southern Thailand some years ago. He passed away about 10, 20 years ago. He was building his main meditation hall in his monastery. When it came to the rains retreat period, this period of the monsoon in India, it's usually July to October, he sent the workers home. This was the time for quiet and peace in the monastery when they wanted to meditate. He sent everybody home. And one day a visitor came and they saw that hall without any windows or roof on and said, when is the hall going to be finished? And this monk said, the meditation hall is finished. And the visitor said, what do you mean? Are you going to leave it like this without any roof on? Without any glass in the windows and cement bags and pieces of wood lying all over the floor? Are you going to leave it like this? What do you mean it's finished? And this monk replied, what's done is finished. And he went off to meditate. What a wise word that is. Do you ever finish your work? You can say to yourself, what's done is finished. And then go and have some stillness and peace. Otherwise, you'll never find any peace in your life at all. If you want to take a rest, remember that saying, what's done is finished, and go off and take a rest. But unfortunately, people misunderstand that teaching, because one day I gave that teaching on a Friday night in Perth, and on a Sunday I had these parents come and complain to me. They were really upset. So what's wrong? He said, you know that teaching you gave, what's done is finished? I said, yes. Well, on Saturday evening, my son, they said, he was doing his homework, and he went out to go to a party. And the rule was he had to finish his homework before he could go out with his girlfriend. And so we asked, son, have you finished your homework already? And my son said, just as Ajahn Brahm taught us last night, Daddy, what's done is finished. See you tomorrow. And he didn't do his homework. But you can get the idea there. The only time you can find some peace is in the middle of the mess of your life. Don't try and get everything done and then find some peace. Otherwise you will be one of those people in the cemetery resting in peace. You get peace out of the way first. Get stillness. It will give you great energy, good health, get rid of depression. You'll see what the Buddha saw. You'll be able to solve problems in your life, and you'll be happy. Happy beyond your wildest dreams. Stillness, the culminating factor of the Eightfold Path. Da da da. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. Okay, now we're going to have the question. You've got a question tray now. The box ain't big enough anymore. So here we go. It can be a long night. No, it's not that bad. So here we go. But any questions from the audience, first of all, about stillness and meditation? Going. God. Okay. So stillness actually gives you the understanding of ultimate love. The funeral caretaker tells us that normally the body becomes very hard and stiff after a person dies. But in Mahayana Buddhist, funeral chanting is done for 12 hours after death. Oh, those poor Mahayana monks and nuns. They must have sore throat. 12 hours! Goodness gracious. Anyway, in Mahayana Buddhist funeral, chanting is done for 12 hours after death. After that, the body is so flexible and the face looks very peaceful. Does this mean the dead has let go and taken good rebirth? This happened to both my mother and grandmother. Please clarify. Any doctors here or biologists will tell you that this is just what happens. You have rigor mortis gets in after so many hours. Rigor mortis is a Latin word for the stiffness of the body, and after a while, it just becomes flexible again. This is nature. It would happen to everybody, even to dogs. So it's not a dog, they don't get any Buddhist chanting at all. Well, actually some do, because these days people love their dogs so much. I've chanted for many dogs. We even cremated one once, with all the monks standing around. But anyway, that's a different story. This is nature. It's got nothing to do with the chanting. It's nature. The body becomes soft nature. The chanting doesn't make it soft. You try that. It may be you get two people die, one chant, one don't chant. Both will be the same. Ask any scientist, they will tell you that. But please, be kind to your monks and nuns. Don't get them chanting for 12 hours. That's probably why you can't find any monks and nuns to do the funerals anymore here in Kuala Lumpur. They've all got sore throats. Chanting. But I think I did tell you about in Japan, didn't I? About what they've done there to get monks for the funeral. No, okay. I read this in the paper. Real story. This is not a joke, but it's funny. They had trouble getting monks and nuns or whatever they could find, Buddhists, to do funerals for Buddhists in Japan. And it's strange in Japan. They always go for a Christian wedding. I think they like the white gown and the organ music here comes by. They love that. But for funerals, they always get the Buddhists to do the funerals. Because, okay, you can have a marriage, but, when it really counts, when you know it's heaven or hell, you better get the right people in. But it was so difficult to get a Buddhist monk or nun to do the service. So, being Japan, high-tech, very innovative, they decided to get a robot monk, a cyborg. So it looks exactly like a monk. They put a robe on it. It's got a face. And when they need to do the chanting, they press the button and the mouth starts moving and perfect chanting comes out every time. And it's much cheaper than buying a real monk, because it just takes a few ringgit of electricity. That's all it takes. And perfect chanting with this robot monk. And they just to add a little pizzazz to the funeral ceremony, and this is true, after the chanting is finished, the monk levitates up and goes through a hole in the ceiling with all these clouds of dry ice. It's really impressive. The real monks can't do that, but the robot monk does that every time. That's really impressive. And actually, on that subject, of funerals, I wondered, why can't we have inspiring funerals here in places like Malaysia? You know what happens when you go to a funeral? It's in the coffin, and then it is taken out and going into the place where it's burnt, into the ovens. Or if it's buried, it goes down into the hole. Buried into a hole? What does that remind you of? Going down. It's very depressing. So I was trying to suggest this to the funeral places, the crematoriums in Australia. You put the coffin of your loved one sort of on the stand. You do all your chanting, whatever you need to do. And when it's the end of the ceremony, you press the button and it goes up, up and up with all this dry ice and beautiful heavenly chanting and lovely fragrant smells as it goes up, and it disappears in the clouds, again through the hole in the roof, but obscured by all these clouds of dry ice and wonderful chanting or wonderful music. Wouldn't that be wonderful and uplifting? That would give you a sense, oh, Grandma's gone to heaven, I've seen it. That is another good business idea for some entrepreneur here in KL. And to make it even more interesting, we could also have an alternative if it goes down. And what we could do, get all the family members to come to the funeral, and they could have a vote on which way they think it should go. And it would probably be pretty accurate. Maybe sort of a hidden little button, sort of up and down, and the ones who press the most, it goes up or goes down. And that means everybody make funerals really exciting. We find out which way they go. And the people who know can decide. If he's had mistresses, the wife can actually push the down button. So anyway, those are my ideas for funerals. Could be really, because otherwise they're really boring funerals. They're really just dull and seeing that. But imagine it's exciting. You could even have like probably Chinese people will do, have wagers on which one it goes. Anyway, let's go back to the next question. Dear Biggest Loser, that's me. In meditation, what happens when the mind is still and peaceful but mindfulness is weak? If the mind is peaceful and still, mindfulness might start weak, but it gets stronger and stronger, so be patient. The stillness will build up the power of mindfulness, so you're very still. And you get more aware, and more aware, and more aware, and really aware, and mega aware, and giga aware. It just builds up by itself. So you do nothing. And watch. This is a process which works. You fight, you do something, and you lose your mindfulness. You be still, and the mindfulness gets stronger and stronger. Be still and know that thou art God. Pure love, power, energy, bliss. That's what happens when you're still. Ajahn, when one is in jhana, does he know what happens around him? No. What happens when someone's wake up from jhana during cremation? Will his body burn to ashes? This is something I said earlier. This is really cool and weird. If you get into these deep meditations of jhanas, number one, you don't know what's going on around you. Here's one lovely story. There was a novice. These small novices who ordain when they're 10, 11, 12 years of age. Sometimes they ordain because their parents can't look after them, or their parents die or something. So it's like almost like an orphanage. The monks look after them, give them a good education, and actually teach them a very strong moral background. And most of those novices are very young. When they get to about 16 or 17, they disrobe and just live a normal life. But it's looked after them, at those early stages of their life. So there was one young novice. He was only about 12 or 13 years of age, staying with Ajahn Chah. And Ajahn Chah, and this is my master, one evening was giving a Dharma talk, and he doesn't stop. He just carried on and on and on, hour after hour after hour. Sometimes he used to go on all night. I mean, really, until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That was really long. And you couldn't even go out to urinate. It was really torture. But anyway, he was given one of these really long sermons and had a small novice in there, about 13 years of age, 12 years of age. And apparently and after half an hour he got really bored. He said, look, it's okay for the real monks. I'm just a novice monk because I've got no family. When's Ajahn Chah going to stop? I need to go to bed. For when you're grown up, you've got some endurance. But when you're only 13 years of age, you can't stay up all night like that. It's just too tough. So he started moaning. And he got into this negative train of thought. You know how you keep on repeating trains of thought? His trains of thought was, when is Ajahn Chah going to stop? When is he going to stop? When is he going to stop? And this became like an automatic recording for about 30 minutes. When is he going to stop? And then the novice just had an idea. And he changed the wording to, when am I going to stop? And that novice stopped. This is a true story, it's a wonderful story. When he opened his eyes, it was early in the morning. He'd been meditating there 7 or 8 hours. All the monks had done their chanting and left, and he was still meditating there. One of the best nights of his life. The little novice had got into a jhana state. And all the monks doing their chanting and banging their bells, whatever they were doing, and getting up and getting all their stuff, he hadn't heard a word of it. And he didn't care. A wonderful night. Because you get huge amounts of bliss. So you don't hear people. And you can't feel people. So that's all gone. But it's always the case. And this is said in the sutras by the Buddha, and I told a person example of that. If you get into the jhanas and they think you're dead and they put you in the crematorium, they'll put you in the box, in the coffin, and they close it, and they will actually put you through, and it'll be in the ovens, and when the ovens has finished burning and they take you out, it'll be, hi, I'm still here. And the poor guy who works in the crematorium, he'd probably be the next in the box because he'd probably die in shock. But you will not be burned. There are some weird things which I've seen happen in my life. Things which don't make any sense according to science, but you see them, it's true. And that's one of them. If you get into jhana, you are invulnerable. So, if it is the end of the world, come, get into jhana quick. The earthquake will happen, the tsunamis will come over you, everybody will be come and gone, and you come out afterwards. Hi guys, still here. But no one else to talk to, but at least you'll be here. Weird, but true. Where is heaven according to Buddha's teaching? Heaven is in Wat Chetawan on a Saturday evening listening to Ajahn Brahm. Now, I think what they really mean is the heaven realms where people go to after they die. Now, these are mind-made realms. You construct this. They're not up there. They've had Apollo gone all the way to the moon. They haven't seen any heaven realms on the way. We got people that have actually drilled holes into the earth. They haven't seen any people with horns and tails under the ground. That was just a myth of early people. But those realms exist. You actually create them in your mind. And they go and live in those realms. And so the heaven realms you will go to if you're good people after you die. You will create the heaven realm you think you deserve. It will be custom made, just for you. So if you are from KL or Penang, you will probably make your heaven realm with lots of durian trees. Not in my heaven, they stink. My heaven will be very different than your heaven. You will make the heaven which you like. So that's actually, it's amazing. This is actually what you do. So there are billions of heaven realms, custom made for each person. And made by you. I sat through 1 hour surprisingly without any aching in a single lotus, which normally will ache after 25 minutes. Hope you can explain that. Thanks. This is another phenomenon of meditation. When you sit and you're still, you don't have any aches. It's amazing sometimes. You're very, very peaceful. You have got no aches and pains, no stiffness, and even, look, there was, this is not really too, I've got to be careful the stories I tell, but I remember going to Canberra to give a series of talks one day. Canberra is the coldest city in Australia. And so I'd never had enough warm clothes on, so the first day there I got a terrible cold. And in the morning I was sniffing and sneezing and I felt terrible, but someone had arranged to take me on a tour to a neighbouring monastery. And you know what happens sometimes? They're late and they get lost, and what was only supposed to be a visit of about 2 or 3 hours lasted all day, maybe 8 or 9 hours. And by the time I got back to the monastery where I was supposed to be giving a talk, I was exhausted and felt terrible, coughing and sneezing. But all these people had come a long way to listen to me. So I decided I'd better give a talk. And I gave a talk, with my eyes running, my nose, all this stuff dripping down my nose, coughing, and you just couldn't string a sentence together. I start talking, and then I'd start, and it was interrupted. I could not get a train of thought going. And people, when they're not listening because they start looking at their clock, looking down. These days they'll be SMSing, but they were not paying attention. So I knew I was losing the audience. I could not give a proper talk. So I said, let's do some meditation for 20 minutes. So everybody agreed to do 20 minutes of meditation instead of listening to an awful talk. And that's all it took me, 20 minutes. When I came out of meditation, I gave this fluent talk without a cough, without a sneeze. And I remember some of the people I knew, they said, the talk, they weren't listening to the talk. They weren't listening to what I was saying. They were in awe that you had a cold and a cough, and they could see it, they could hear it. And after 30 minutes of meditation, it had totally gone. And you gave this very fluent talk without a cough, without a sneeze. That's what meditation does. It really is powerful. You can do things like that. And people actually saw it. So this is what happens. You do get sort of no aches and pains, and even coughs and sneezes and other diseases. They just disappear. I've seen it many times. I wouldn't say that if I didn't know it was true. Dear Ajahn Brahm, is it okay to do some chanting in my mind in order to keep thoughts out during meditation? Of course you can do some chanting. You know my favourite chant, just the 2-worder. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. But you can. What's that in Chinese? You don't know it. You never shut up. That's why. You can say that to yourself. Dear Ajahn, can you give a brief account of pilgrimage sites in India? If we were to go for pilgrimage, how to make the best out of the trip? Thank you. There are 4 holy sites. The 4 holy sites. You know what those 4 holy sites are? 1st jhana, 2nd jhana, 3rd jhana, 4th jhana. Because that's where the Buddha lived. And if you actually check this is in the Chula Hattipadopama Sutta. He said these are the 4 footprints of the Buddha. The 4 jhanas, the 4 states of deep stillness. And they're footprints because if you go, this every time I say this, it really makes, my hairs on the, I've not got no hairs on my head, but the back of my head stand up. It gives me the sort of the goosebumps when I say this. Every time I say this, it gives me goosebumps. When you achieve a jhana, you are knowing what the Buddha felt like. If you want to know a Buddha mind, experience directly what it feels like to be a Buddha. Any of those jhanas, you know what a Buddha felt like. You're in the Buddha's footsteps. That's why these are incredible states. Every time I say that again, because it's true. That's Chulahatipadopama Sutta. So if you go and sit on the vulture's peak, the Buddha sat there, but it's not as powerful. It's mentally, spiritually, sitting where the Buddha sat in the deep meditations. So I say those are the pilgrimage sites I want you to go to. That doesn't cost any money. You don't have to have visas, and you don't have to go through the dirty countryside and have to urinate and defecate in the paddy fields, which is what you had to do in those days. Probably still these days as well. Otherwise, if you want to go to the easy sites, that's Lumbini and Benares and Bodh Gaya and Kusinara, you can go there very easily. The Indian government knows that there's a lot of money to be made with tourists these days. Buddhism is growing, and so they want people to go to India. So it's very comfortable these days. So it's nice to go into those Buddhist sites because, one of the nice things about those sites, they're not commercialized. You go to a place like Jerusalem where Jesus lived, and it's just so much commercialism there, so many queues, and you have to pay to go in. And these Buddhist sites are still for free. You go up in the Vulture's Peak, you can actually sit where the Buddha sat. You don't have to buy tickets. You don't have to. There's not a stall outside selling knickknacks. I visited the Buddhas. You don't have these little things with the Buddha's head which you put on the back of the car as souvenirs. You don't have that commercialism, which is wonderful. So that's one of the nice things I like about India. They haven't commercialized. They still respected the simplicity and spirituality of Buddhism. So anyway, that's how the best way to make of the trip is take time and just meditate in one of those sites. Feel the energy, because the energy is powerful. Look, there is one of my disciples. She's an English girl. She's maybe in her 70s now. She's married to an Anglo-Indian. And when I took her on a pilgrimage to India many years ago, before we left, we had a little orientation day or afternoon. So I've been there many times. I said, what you should take and how you should behave and the sort of things you can expect at these sites. And one of the things I told people was some of these sites are so powerful, you'll get emotionally charged, you might even cry. Without any reason, you'd burst into tears. And this lady, Barbara her name is, she told me later on, she said, when I heard that, Ajahn Brahm, just, stupid monk, because she's from England. There's been many ruins she's visited in the past, old castles, old palaces. England is full of ruins. So what's this thing, another archaeological site? That's all. You don't cry when you see an old castle. But the first place we went to was Bodh Gaya. She walked into the Mahabodhi temple. She started weeping uncontrollably. And she came up to me afterwards and said, I asked forgiveness. I thought you were a crazy monk, but it's true. It's not true that I'm a crazy monk. But true that you have weep in these places. And this was an English, an Angmo, who just didn't know what she was doing. She wasn't a very devout Buddhist yet. She used to be a Christian in a Uniting Church in Australia, very active, but because of her husband she got into Buddhism, and this really blew her away. The energy was so strong, totally unexpected. She wept her eyes out, couldn't stop. That's power in these places. So that's the reason I like going there is just because I like just getting into that power. Just allowing yourself to get so emotionally strong. And sometimes you ask, why is it powerful? And basically, the reason is because there are such things as devas, heavenly beings, angels they call them. They are still around in vast numbers in those places. Those are the places where the Buddha got enlightened. And they're still worshipping that. For angels, it's only a day ago. It's only a few days since the Buddha was there. They're still hanging around in vast numbers. They give incredible power. Anyway, what are the ways to safely wake a meditator up? Is using an alarm clock a good idea? It depends who the meditator is. If it's a meditator from Malaysia, just get some noodles and put it in front of their nose. Oh, they'll wake up. Even in the deepest of jhanas, you'll probably get to them. I've always noticed, I asked this morning, what are you having for breakfast? Noodles again. Noodles. I said, there was a wonderful Air Asia advertisement I saw in Perth. Air Asia, the airline here, they said, go to KL, oodles of noodles in KL. That was their campaign advertising, oodles of noodles. Oodles means lots. Dear Ajahn, before we can contemplate the nature of impermanence, we need jhanas. I wonder why perfect stillness is the last factor instead of the seventh. Is there any deeper meaning? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. There is a deeper meaning to that. It's a very good question. Because there is part of the Buddhist scriptures called the Anguttara Nikaya, where they list the one of this, the two of this, the three of that, the four of that, 4 noble truths, the 5 powers, the 6 sense bases, the 7 enlightenment factors. It goes all the way like that. And when I first read them, I got to the 8s, and I was looking, where's the Eightfold Path? It wasn't mentioned in the 8s. What I thought the most important group of 8, you don't see there. You find it in the group of 10s, with 2 extra factors. Because the path is just the path. This is what you do. And the last 2 factors are the results. The results are right freedom and right knowledge of freedom. Samma vimutti jnana. That completes the 10 factors. The 8 are the path. The last 2 are the results. So you just do all of those, and as a result of the Samadhi, you see things as they truly are, and you become enlightened. I was just talking to Ajahn Brahm. He's one of my friends over in Perth. We were just looking at one of the great suttas in the Devaputta Samyutta, where it's written, the one who experiences jhanas will surely reach the further shore. Basically, once you got into a jhana, you're not home yet, but you're certain you'll get there. So said that sutta. Some of you will get those jhanas. Ooh, your enlightenment is certain. That is freaky and spooky. That's one of those other things which makes... This is word for word from the suttas. It really sort of gets the goosebumps going. Because some people have got those jhanas, lay people. You read that, you will certainly reach the further shore. In the Buddhist scriptures, the original ones. That is how powerful this is. So we just say the Eightfold Path because this is what you do. This is the path. The destination is what happens when you reach the end of that path. Great stuff. That's a really good question. Thank you. Dear Ajahn, what is the difference between an arahat and an enlightened one? An arahat is an enlightened one. The arahat is just like a worthy one. That's just the word they used, and that means someone who's fully enlightened. If I'm right, non-self and wisdom is achieved on first jhana. If one experiences only jhana once, does the good virtue of non-self and wisdom tapes off over time? Does it need constant jhana practice? No, if you get into those deep stillness, everything is there for you, but sometimes people miss it, so they don't become enlightened after a first jhana. But you need at least one of those jhanas to get enlightened. It's not the case you get a jhana and automatically you're enlightened straight away. Eventually you will be, but sometimes you need to re-experience it time and time and time again until the message is driven home to you. So actually that's why it works. Next question coming up. Dear Ajahn Brahm, is it okay to use the silver method to count down to alpha before beginning meditation? Thank you for all your teachings. Of course, we don't ban any method of meditation here as long as it works. You can use the old, it's like someone was using the old, what the Beatles teacher, the Maharishi method, the TM method. If you want to use the TM mantra, please use it. If you want to use beads, please use them as long as they're soft beads and don't go clack, 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 clack. If you want to use the silver method, fine. This method is the best because it's the cheapest. It's amazing how many people have to pay for these meditation methods. And basically you get the very best here, cut price. The last time I came to the BGF, in the old BGF Centre, I gave a talk one night, and this guy came to speak to me. He is from an extremely wealthy family here in KL, mega rich, and he was suffering from some depression. So he went over to the Mayo Clinic in New York. That's where all the film stars and the mega rich go when they're depressed or got addictions. And he made an appointment with John Kabat-Zinn, who started the mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy. He managed to get an appointment with this guy because he paid a lot of money. And so when he went to this Mayo Clinic, he came back to KL. He said, all of those doctors and therapists there, they were all Buddhists. And they were saying exactly the same thing I hear in the BGF every week. But I had to pay a fortune for that. How stupid I was. I could have stayed in KL and got all of that for free. And I love that because you go to the best clinics. This is the Mayo Clinic in New York. And they, any sort of Paris Hilton or, maybe Angelina Jolie, any of these film stars who are having a difficult time, that's where they go. And what do they hear? Exactly what you hear here for no price at all. This is value for money. It really is. And that's no joke. It really is value for money. Thanks for your advice. During the sitting, my legs suddenly became something like cushion, like squash-like cushion, and the breath is more refined and more serene. Really thanks for your gigameta. Yes, it does work. I told you so. I always like telling people I told you so. Sadhu for guiding us throughout this retreat and showing us ceaseless support. You are right. Of course. Sometimes when I speak like that, I say, Ajahn Brahm, you should be more humble. Actually, I am humble. I am the humblest monk in the whole world. In fact, my humility, I want to see if I can get into the Guinness Book of Records for the most humble monk in the world. I say, if you are humble, you must flaunt it. I'm only having fun. Started for guidance with it. You were right. When I was meditating, I did hear your voice in my mind telling me what to do. Ha ha ha. Just a question here. Can everyone meditate and see nimittas and attain jhanas? Eventually, yes. Everyone can do it. It may take a time. Some people on the fast track, some people on the slow track. We're all on the track somewhere. Is there anyone who just can't meditate no matter how hard they try to conquer the 5 hindrances? Just a thought. No. It's a wonderful thing that everyone can do this. Sometimes in Mahayana they have this wonderful saying, everyone's got Buddha mind. I love that saying. Everyone can do it. Even criminals. Sometimes even these people who are rapists who get into really big trouble, yes, they can too. What a wonderful teaching that is for people. Dear Ajahn Brahm, how to apply the 7 factors of enlightenment into our meditation practice? First learn them, and then put them into practice. What are they? Dhamma Vichaya, you contemplate the Dhamma. Mindfulness, Virya, the energy. Piti, this is the joy. That's number 4 of the 7 Bojjhangas, the one people keep forgetting. Now, enjoy the meditation, have fun, have beautiful joy and ecstasy. So when ecstasy comes up in your meditation, don't think there's a mistake. Yeah, it has to happen. It's part of it. Enjoy meditation. And tranquility. Your body becomes still. Your mind becomes still. Samadhi, the stillness of the mind and the equanimity. Those are the ones. So that's what you're doing here. So carry on, just come to my retreat and it'll all be done for you. Oh, what a wonderful teaching. The cheapest in KL and the best. This is my marketing again. Your emptiness most Ajahn. Thank you for the Dharma talk. I enjoyed the most in the retreat. Do we really can enjoy the food during the retreat? Of course you must enjoy the food during this retreat. People put so much effort into making delicious food, and you decide not to enjoy it? Oh, that's really unfair to all the people. So enjoy the food as well. What is it? Contemplation before meals is, I take this food for not beauty or pleasure, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. That's not why you take the food. That's just what happens when you get the food into your mouth. So that's not the reason. The reason you take the food is for good health. But if it's not enjoyable, then the saliva doesn't come out of your mouth. The other bile and other stuff needed to digest the food doesn't actually get into your digestive system, and you get indigestion. The food has to taste delicious, otherwise saliva doesn't come out. There's nothing to digest the food. That's why even the Buddha said, no, the food has to be tasty. Otherwise you just get indigestion. That is why on retreats we tell people, in particular, you must make delicious food. Otherwise people get digestive problems. And especially for the monks. There's bad karma giving indigestion to the monks. As Buddhists we are supposed to uphold compassion. Yeah, be compassionate to the monks. Sometimes in society we are torn with exercising our rights, such as consumer rights and compassion. Kindly advise. Consumer rights and compassion are the same. But sometimes, no, seriously, that sometimes people see a difficult situation. Maybe in their office there is somebody who is abusing others in the office. And sometimes say, well, should I really stand up and complain about this boss? I know it's going to really hurt, maybe even jeopardize my career and be really difficult for quite a few months. Or should I just let it go? Sometimes I ask people like that, look, know your limitations. Can you really take this? And if so, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it out of compassion for everybody else in that business who has to deal with that really abusive boss. Because some of the bosses in some companies, they can be sexual predators. You know, sexually abusing the girls, patting them or whatever else they're doing, which is really off. You can't do that in a modern world. And sometimes you say, well, if I complain, I'm going to get in trouble. You do get in trouble, but by complaining, you are compassionately helping all the other girls who have to endure that sort of that monster. So you make that choice. And sometimes compassion means you're going to stand up and make a fight. But when you do make the fight, you do it not for yourself. This is for all the other people, so they don't have to be abused by such a person. So sometimes, but you only do that, you talk it over with your partner. How much strength have you got? Can you really take it? Because sometimes it's a long fight. So even a social issue, you may be working for, like the people who work for the smoking companies. They found out that, that smoking was causing cancer. But to take on a cigarette company was really, really big time hard. So they had to talk it over with their family. Can they endure this? Can they endure, the ostracism of fighting these mega billion-dollar companies? But some decided, yes, we will do this out of compassion, not for ourselves. We're going to suffer. We know that, but the compassion for other people to save their lives. And you can only just, really applaud the courage of such people. But it's not for yourself. It's compassion for other beings. It's like being a bodhisattva. You have to take a big hit in your life, but you do it for the sake of others. That's what I did for bhikkhuni ordination. So I had to take a hit, but I realized I was strong enough to do that. It was only a small thing. But you stood up and you did something because it needed to be done. What is one-pointedness meditation? It doesn't mean actually one-pointedness. Ek agata. Aga means a peak, a summit. It's not like one-pointedness. It's one very high summit of meditation. That is the jhanas. A huge high state of mind. That's what it means. How to apply 7 factors of enlightenment to our meditation practice? Somebody has been copying, because somebody else asked that question a moment ago. So that's already been answered. The next question, I might even finish on time. It's only 25 too. Is that right, or 22? Very good. I am currently having fever in this retreat. Great. This is Saturday night fever. Yeah, this is a hot retreat. Saturday Night Fever was a movie. I've never seen it, but this is what happens on Saturday night, and it is Saturday night. I am currently having fever in this retreat. Do you think this is also a way the body is reacting to the teaching? Yes, this is hot teaching. I'm a hot monk. Now, sometimes a fever can be all sorts of things. It can be, the temperature of this room a little bit hot because so many people inside. Everyone is 1 kilowatt of energy giving off. So sometimes you do feel a bit hot when you're in an auditorium. So it can be that. It can be just a body balancing. Sometimes, what happens when you meditate? Sometimes when you meditate, you get cool very quickly, but the metabolism takes the time to actually adjust. It's really similar to when you're driving your car. When you park your car, your engine is hot for many minutes afterwards until it cools down. Very often when people meditate, their mind becomes very still, but the body is still churning out some energy. So you actually do get hot when you cool down in meditation. The body takes a while to catch up. So that might be the case. You're getting cool and still, but the body's metabolism is actually creating too much energy, so it has to burn it off with a bit of heat. So you'll be quite okay. Here we go. Da, da, da. I'm getting close to being on time for a change. I have been very bad to my mother. I disrespect her, doing things and saying things that really hurt her. When I became a Buddhist, I changed. I have good respect to her, just like what the Buddha taught us. I buy her the food she likes to eat, and I also brought her to offer dana, etc. My mother has passed away 3 years ago, but I still feel bad the way I treated her earlier. What should I do? You managed to change just in time. So you probably, the bad karma you did for your mother, you made up by being kind in the end. And what you do in the end is most important. And what the Shakespeare said, all's well that ends well. So the last thing was the best. If it was the other way round, you'd be in trouble. If you're really, really kind to your mum all her life, but the last 3 years you were really bad and evil, then you'll be in trouble. But the Buddha said if anyone has made some bad karma, there is a solution. Why is everybody so interested? I caught you out, you bad people. And the solution is the simile of the teaspoon of salt. If you put a teaspoon of salt into a cup of water like this, you wouldn't be able to drink the water, it would be too salty. But if you put the teaspoon of salt into a swimming pool of water, you wouldn't even taste the salt. It would be so dilute. And this was a simile of the Buddha. If you've got some bad karma, and you've only got a small amount of good karma, the good karma doesn't dilute it. You're going to receive the fruits of the bad karma. But if you dilute the bad karma, you've got so much good karma, really heaps of good karma, then the bad karma gets diluted. You may not even be able to taste it. So that's why if you have done some bad karma, you better start doing some good karma soon. And one of the best good karmas you can do? Meditating. If you meditate and get into deep meditation, that is worth billions of dollars of donations. It is the cheapest and the best way to make good karma. So if you want to save some money, join the next retreat. But it's true. Acts of compassion, keeping precepts, is huge good karma. That's why sometimes people, this good karma, going to temples is so expensive. It doesn't cost anything to keep 5 precepts. And it's much, much more good karma, said the Buddha, than thousands of dollars given to a temple. So keeping your precepts, meditating, doing acts of compassion, serving the community, that is the way that even poor people can dilute their bad karma. So if you have really hurt your mum and you think you've still got some bad karma to pay off, keep the 5 precepts. Do some work in the temple. Join the Buddhist Gem Fellowship as a volunteer, whatever. And that is a wonderful way of diluting the bad karma. You can also give donations, of course, as well. We still need it. This relates to rebirth. Why is it that we cannot remember our actions in our past lives? One of the reasons is because efficiency. Imagine that you can remember your wife in the past life. And you had a new wife. Which one would you go for? It gets very confusing. It's confusing enough when people have all these exes. And it's just they meet their ex, and it gets very confusing. There's another story. This is a true story. A Thai girl in Perth. She told me what happened when she remembered her previous life. This was in a village in the northeast of Thailand. When she was born, she had perfect recall that her present father was her nephew in the previous life. So she got reborn as her nephew's daughter. And her recall was so accurate the whole village realized, yes, she was. This old lady who had died and got reborn as her nephew's daughter. But the trouble came when she went to school, when she was 5 or 6 years of age, because the headmaster of the school was her son from the previous life. And the headmaster, he understood this. This is my mother reborn, and now she's in my school. Now, just like schools in Malaysia, they're very strict. When the teacher comes in, especially the headmaster, all the children have to stand up. She refused to stand up. I should not stand up for my son. He has to stand up for me. And the poor principal knew that, so he couldn't do anything. And if anybody misbehaved in school, they got the cane from the principal. But no matter what she did, the principal could not cane this girl. How can you cane your mummy? So she told us. So she had a wonderful time at school. She could do whatever she wanted. She never learned very much. But she was totally beyond any discipline because the headmaster was her son. Now that's why it gets complicated if we remember our past lives. So it's better we don't. So that's why we don't. Unless we really want to, like her. But anyway, so that's the reason why. It's more efficient if we forget. Then life doesn't get so complicated. I really felt for that principal. He must have been in big trouble. This naughty girl, and that's my mum. Dear Ajahn, my sister's daughter is in her puberty, 13-year-old, but refuses to eat normal amount of food to stay thin. Probably under my sister, her mum's influence, as she always praises the models as attractive, and she was always on a diet and very weight consciousness. My niece is brainwashed. What should I do to help my niece? I talked to my sister, but she can't change her anxiety towards getting fat and able to stop praising and enjoying the people. She's such a bad example herself. Okay, seeing if you can actually find a nice boy in the school who's overweight and pay him to be her boyfriend. And get the nice guy to say, no, darling, you're too thin, you're too thin, you're too thin. And maybe she might put on weight. I don't know, I'm just making this up because I've never had any daughters. But it is a problem. So please understand that all these models you see on the magazines, that's not what they really look like. I think I told you about the one of the friends who went to a retreat with Kate Moss. Kate Moss, the supermodel from England. And he went on this retreat and someone said, hey, Kate Moss is on this retreat. I thought, wow, this is a supermodel, drop-dead gorgeous, hot on the cover of all magazines. And he looked around, and which one is it? And he couldn't recognize her because she only looks like Kate Moss, the supermodel, when she has makeup, hairdos, and airbrushing. The real Kate Moss looks like any other girl. It's the same with all these other supermodels. If you actually saw them in real life, you wouldn't think, "Wow, is this a supermodel?" They just look like any other girl in this retreat. So this is fantasy. Real girls don't look like the ones you see in the magazines. That's why boys get very disappointed. So if you can get that through to your niece or whatever, then she might sort of start eating again. Dear Your Emptiness, Ajahn, retreat in Jhana Grove is heavenly nice. Why don't you talk on that? I hope that everyone here can go to that place when you will that is paradise. Yeah, this is my retreat center because I had the opportunity to build a retreat center, and again with many donations from Malaysia, you helped out with my retreat center over in Perth. So please come and enjoy it if you've donated towards it. Every person has their own room. A nice big room, a nice bed. You have your own ensuite, nice hot water. It's actually quiet. We don't have any cats running over you during the meditation. No dogs barking at night time. It's really quiet and peaceful and wonderful. And you've got nice monks like me teaching you. It is paradise. It is a 5-star retreat. So if you want to go there, great place to go. Can you kindly explain the first utterance by the Lord Buddha immediately after enlightenment? His paean of joy. What was his first? Now, I did actually give a test for people over in Perth. What was the Buddha's last words of advice before he passed away? Somebody suggested no. His last words of advice were, "Don't eat that curry." Because that's what killed him. Well, I think that was a bit before. So, okay. What was his first words? I think, was it Aho Sukang or something? Oh, what joy? Sorry? Okay, it's the end of samsara. But I wasn't there at the time, so sometimes we've, don't we? Sorry? Okay, this house builder has been destroyed. Okay. Yeah, okay, this is actually probably just saying the house builder has been destroyed. That's the sankhara, that's the will. That doer of ours, that's been destroyed, finished, so the samsara is ended. Anyway, Ajahn Brahm, I should really thank you. Oh no, I should dear Ajahn Brahm. It's great when I'm cheeky because you're cheeky back. I should really thank your ex-girlfriend for dumping you. I think we should give her a present for that. Else we'll never have a great Dhamma teacher and monk like you. Maha sadhu to you for all your profound inspiration Dhammas. I benefited so much from them. You are the source of happiness, peace and compassion to many. Thank you, BGF, for organising such a beneficial and wonderful retreat. You've done a great job. Yeah, we're going to say thank you to the BGF tomorrow, but I don't know where my ex-girlfriend has gone or ex-girlfriends. If I ever find them, I'll say that the BGF and the people in Malaysia thank you a lot. After meditating, what was that joke about the? Okay, that was right. There was a man who was in the cemetery, and he was over a grave, weeping inconsolably, crying and crying and crying. And someone came up to him and said, "Never mind. People who die. Was this your brother in the grave or your son?" He said, No. I'm weeping inconsolably because that was my wife's first husband. Why did you die? Why did you die? My wife's first husband. If he hadn't have died, he wouldn't have had to marry her. Okay, anyway, it's a bit late to get that joke. After meditating for 1 hour, my legs start to hurt. I try giving metta to the pain and try to let go, but it is useless. Please advise. Move. Exercise. Sit on a chair, and then apparently you don't hurt so much. So if it's hurting, move. Do something about it. Don't just sit there. Otherwise, you're going to have your leg amputated or something, and that's not a very good reputation for the BGF. So if it hurts, it means there's something wrong with your posture. So try and move. Sit on a chair, do something, exercise so it doesn't move. Is there a dress code for a Buddhist monk? Yes, you have to wear a robe. Is it wrong for a monk to wear a coat over his robe? I think I did that the other day. Yeah, it's an old one. Very good, here we go. Dear Ajahn Brahm, does the stream of consciousness of Buddha still exist and available for rebirth if Buddha chose or to has it, or dissipated into emptiness and therefore no longer exists as an entity? The stream of consciousness ceased in parinibbana. They say ceasing without remainder. But does that mean the Buddha doesn't exist anymore? Sometimes you have Christians come up and say, "Oh, your Buddha is gone, but our Jesus lives." They're cheeky, so I'm cheeky back. So I say, no, your Jesus hasn't come back yet. But our Buddha is right here. And I say, what do you mean? He's disappeared. He said, no. One of the great teachings in the suttas taught by the Buddha is, the one who sees the Buddha sees the Dhamma. The one who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. Can you see the Dhamma? So you can see the Buddha. The Buddha lives. He hasn't gone and not come back like your teacher. I'm cheeky sometimes, so I don't mind being cheeky. Today I feel very happy and delightful. I don't know why. No jhana, no nimitta, maybe a little bit, not sure. The reason you are happy because tomorrow you're going home. It's obvious, isn't it? That's why in all these retreats they usually take the photograph at the very end. And the organisers see how happy everybody is. Of course they're happy. They're leaving now. But please, when we have the photograph tomorrow, we can have a photograph tomorrow. Please, I want everyone to be sad. Tears running down. I'm leaving. I don't want to go. Now, that would be a good advertisement for the next retreat. Anyway, I feel happy, but still feel blissful and feel the singing and dancing, even though I can't sing and dance. Reminds me of Julie Andrews singing the sound of music, and also I could dance all night, but no being 8 precept observers, I must restrain. Anyway, I still feel happy. Just go to a corner of the monastery and just sing your heart out. During meditation, when we strive to let go, isn't this a form of craving too? I'm confused. Pardon me if this is a stupid question, he. I will always pardon you, even for wise questions. Not a wise question. Letting go is the opposite of craving. You can't crave to let go. If you crave to let go, it's not letting go. You can only let go of craving. If you understand that, all these jhanas, they're stages of letting go. So you can't crave them. When you let go, that's what happens. So you can't crave to let go. You can only let go of craving. You can't even do letting go. You have to let go of doing. Thanks, Ajahn, for passing the message to the lady who is 30s. Did I pass the message on? Okay. Thanks, Ajahn, for passing the message to the lady who is 30s. I'm a lady who is 40 now. I used to think like you, to get a husband and have a child and happily thereafter. Yet I find out husband is not the meaning of life. I am happy single now. I can go on holiday, retreat, or do anything without seeking anyone's permission or look at their face, compared to my married friend. By the way, beware on internet dating, as there are con men who cheat lonely women's heart and money. Yeah, be careful. Just enjoy your single life, be happy, meditate, listen to Ajahns talk, while waiting the husband drops from the sky if there is. Do you mean the further he drops from the sky, the better? So basically, if it happens, it happens. If you are single, enjoy being single. Remember, if you are single, you have single woman suffering. If you are married, you have married woman suffering. But again, be really careful. If you do date on the internet, check them out, because they say one thing and a lot of times it's different. So be very careful. If you buy a car, don't you get it checked by someone before you buy it, especially if it's a second-hand car? By the time you're 40 or 30, you'd only get a second-hand man. You won't get a new model. It's used. A used vehicle. Check it out first of all and say don't get caught. Dear charismatic monk, I will be working at a Christian center of 20... What's this? A Christian center of 20 Down syndrome persons immediately after I leave the retreat. Since I now practice Buddhism seriously, will there be a conflict of interest? Would appreciate your spiritual advance. No, you're not serving the Christians, you're serving the Down syndrome patients. There's no conflict there. You can work with Christians, with Muslims, with Hindus. Anything which is a good project, like looking after Down syndrome people, is wonderful. So, you're just being a good Buddhist out of compassion. There's no conflict there, because you're not serving Christianity, you're serving compassion. So remember that, and wherever there's compassion, serve it. The last question at 10 o'clock. I just managed to squeeze it in there before I turn into pumpkin. Maybe I've already turned into pumpkin. Dear Ajahn, does meditation affect Alzheimer's and senile dementia? I can't remember. Does it delay or prevent the onset of these diseases? The research hasn't been done, but I really suspect it does delay it. It does even prevent it, because meditation creates mental energy and clarity, and I can't see that dementia or Alzheimer's can happen to a meditator who continues meditating and is a good meditator. So there we go. The last question for tonight. And I think that all the questions have now been answered, but I am sure you'll find more pieces of paper and put more questions in the box tomorrow. If there's any chance tomorrow, is that the end of the questions? After the morning talk, just a few. But in the meantime, have all your questions now been answered? No. Oh, unfair. But never mind. I hope you've enjoyed the talks, the Eightfold Path. It's not the same as you read in the books, because if it was exactly the same you read in the books, you didn't need to come here. You can read it in the books. So I give talks here to add, to widen your appreciation of the Eightfold Path. Answered questions on all sorts of things, mostly about meditation and Buddhism, but some things about what I don't know anything about. So please forgive me if I made a mistake. And lots of humour, because that is fellowship. When we laugh together, we enjoy our time together. It's creating harmony and peace between people. So I hope you had a wonderful time. Now, if you have, that is merit. There's good karma, so let's share that merit with all the deceased relations and other beings in this temple. Idame yatina hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Idame yatina hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Idame yatina hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a nice night. For those of you on retreat, this is your last chance to get jhana and become enlightened. Remember, you can always catch up on your sleep in the coffin. But no, have a good night, and we'll see you all in the morning. And those who I won't see tomorrow, it's really nice of you to come to my talks. I'll be coming back, I think, again in April. Unconfirmed yet, but keep looking at the BGF. Please support the BGF. Their donation box is outside, and my monastery as well. Otherwise, my monks won't let me come back here again. So please support everybody. You can't take it with you. So remember, give everything you've got. Okay, good night, everybody. Have a safe trip home.